What's up, everybody? Nigerian Will here, and today we're going to be reviewing the new film that will be releasing this Friday, which is September the 4th. And this film is entitled Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. Now, this is brought to you by the director, Michael Pass, and it obviously features Ian Hodgkinson, who's Vampiro, and his daughter, Dacia, shall I say. And this is a documentary, and last time me and Will did a review together, we did another wrestling documentary, and we talked about the tone and really the direction of what that documentary is. And with this film, any big wrestling fan, the first thing I can associate this with is the Dark Side of the Ring little mini series / episodic documentary that was on Vice TV. And this film felt much more like a traditional wrestling film in the sense of, you got to get some behind the curtain insight. You got to get to know the wrestler personal. You got some really, what they'll say, shoot information in this as well too. But at the same time, it followed Vampiro's career from being an in-ring performer to being a producer, somebody who's making the shows operate ultimately to the point of, well, where do we go from here now? Because he kind of left us at a cliffhanger as to, would he ever get back into an influential role, or is he going to be focusing on his health? So nonetheless, that's the premise of this documentary, is the life of Vampiro, the in-ring talent, to Vampiro, the backstage producer. So, but Will, what's your thoughts about this film?
Yeah, Vampiro has a wild story to tell. I'm not sure if a lot of people know quite how long he's been around. He really first hit the scene in the States in the late 90s with WCW, and then of course more recently with Lucha Underground, and it's been around of course in between here and there, but he really first came along back in Mexico doing Lucha Libre. So he hit south of the border before any of that even happened in the States. So unless you were like really into Lucha Libre, you wouldn't even have known who he was. But the whole idea to begin with of a Canadian somehow going down to Mexico and becoming truly one of the biggest stars of Lucha Libre in the early 90s, that's a wild story in and of itself. And it's really just kind of like the first, beginning of his wrestling career. And this documentary gives you all that. It gives you the aftermath. It tells about WCW, it tells about Lucha Underground. But then it even takes you further back to that, to like his childhood, starting out in Canada, playing hockey, and the wild ride he had touring the world with Milli Vanilli. You really do get a little bit of everything in this documentary.
Yeah, and then I remember Vampiro, the character, in WCW, so I've always had that mystique, unknown feel about him because I was a Sting guy. So you did talk about how did Vampiro come up with his gimmick and how it did kind of cross paths with the Crow and Sting gimmick. And you talked about the abundance of injuries. The biggest thing I got from this is him being a single dad to his daughter, and how he had to deal with that. So like the physical injuries, the sexual abuse, the drug addiction, and then raising a daughter. And it was a lot that you went on this roller coaster, and and really breaking it to Ian's personal life. Ian, not just the Vampiro character, but just Ian. But nonetheless, you talked about going down to Mexico, how much respect he got for doing so. Going down there, becoming bilingual, and really fitting in into that community as one as their own. And I mean, sure, a lot of people do go down to Mexico to really perfect their craft, but he was actually brought in as just another member of the family. And that, we talked about in the other documentary, but like when you do, get into that market and you become a staple in that market, like you're considered as family. And with all the struggles and ups and downs that he's had, that was a huge win for him and his career. And he's still a staple in the Mexican Lucha Libre community as it is. And he wasn't even a luchador, which was the other big thing. If you had no clue, no matter if you wore face paint and he had to look like Sid Vicious and so on, this guy wasn't a Lucha Libre, but he was respected as if he was one. He was respected with that tradition. And I just was really like mind blown over that because I had no clue,
Yeah, the difference really is you see the early footage of him showing up in Mexico as Vampire Casanova. And it's straight up, it's more of a rock star presentation than a wrestler presentation. So the wrestling's almost secondary to the entire look he put together. That's coming off his years with Milli Vanilli, and he's showing up like in the cowboy boots and the tight jeans with the rips in them and the leather jacket, combining like all the different things he's picked up over the years, starting out as a punk rocker and all this, and then touring the world. So he shows up as like this vampire pretty boy, and it just clicks down in Mexico, and the girls are just going crazy over him. And he mentions in the documentary that's like, that was kind of like one of his initial, concerns was that like, hey, the hardcore luchadors down here who like were brought up in this and trained in this, they're probably going to resent me for like the fact that I'm coming in here, from Canada, and I'm stealing their girls. They're all, I'm getting the main events. And there was definitely, some push and pull there. And, people had to look out for him and help him out with stuff, and led to, some professional jealousy with Conan that was very well known in the 90s. That led to a lot of stuff there that we get to go into in the documentary. We don't want to spill all the beans here, but yeah, he's lived a wild life. And to go back to what you were talking about with family and being a single dad, when you see the current day guy, and just it strikes me, it kept coming back to me over and over again. It's like Vampiro just feels like it just, so many times I was watching it, I was like, it looks like he has the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Between being a dad and trying to do right by his daughter, but still having wrestling like pulling him in, and like, they're trying to make him wrestle still, but he doesn't want to. He just wants to be a producer and just doing the production stuff. Of course, that's a 24/7 job as it is, trying to run shows and deal with talent. Oh yes, and deal with talent, as you will see during the course of this movie, that you should definitely check out, because there is a lot of backstage access given for Triple Mania 25, and a lot goes down there backstage that I didn't realize was going to be in this, but I had heard rumors, and you get to see it firsthand. So if you're looking for that like fly on the wall perspective, that real nitty gritty, true behind the scenes, behind the curtain, you get that here and then some.
Yeah. And that you bring up AAA and everything, because I definitely not going to spoil anything. There's tons of good appearances by wrestling talent that you've seen. Karrion Kross, formerly known as Killer Kross, Johnny Mundo, who else? Sexy Star, of course, if you know about that story, you get to see a little bit about that. But tons of people who's been affiliated with AAA and Lucha Underground. As you know, he was a big staple in both of these promotions. So you get to see a lot of cameos from talent in that. And even when you get some of the still photos that they go through, you see some couple of popular faces of people appearing in them. But I think, the big thing for me is, much like you said, him having the weight of the world on his shoulders. And he's a man with ego, and he really wants to do right. But everything really points towards him wanting to just be a good model for his daughter. And that relationship that they have is so unique. And hearing from his daughter, and her being a young lady to a mega star that he was, and she had no clue about all the fame he had, and then all the struggles that he was going through. And she just at times you don't see the story where the kids tend to stick by their father although their struggles, and you just see how the daughter stayed by him no matter what. And it just really was the catalyst to his career going forward, because I truly feel if it wasn't for her being in that relationship, that he probably would have gave up a lot of times, because he had a lot of people telling him no, and his body was telling him no a lot as well too. But he just kept doing it. He kept finding ways and positions to be influential in the business, and it's paid dividends, and without a doubt, by the end of this documentary, you're going to gain an appreciation for somebody that you may not have known that his story was really just that deep, because I did not know what I was getting to with this one. But like, unlike the other documentary that we recently reviewed, this one's not that light, heartfelt, light story, redemption story, shall I say, that one was. This one is really getting down to the nitty gritty, the truth, the struggles, and everything's put on the table. And even at the conclusion of this film, which you'll see, you kind of get an idea of like, where's Vampiro at, what's next for him, and what's the current state of this man's body, who's been beat up time and time, But yeah, it's definitely a very, very solid documentary for people who are wrestling fans. So people who just wants a really good documentary about something they may have no clue about. I think the lore here is being able to see a man who was a professional wrestler, who, you know, went down to Mexico to really get his career booming, but also was a single dad who did all of this, gained the stardom, tons of injuries, tons of other, shall I say, questionable decisions in his career, but still continued to be there for his daughter and really, you know, help shape his life and her life. So it's a good story nonetheless.
Yeah, there's the one thing I think you'll really come away with from it is just he took a very creative approach to wrestling because he had so much to pull from, whether it was like, you know, starting out, you know, he talks about in the beginning how it's like, you know, he started out as like a hockey protege in Canada. And as he got older, he got into punk rock. And like the first time he saw wrestling, he saw the Road Warriors on TV in Canada. And he was like, oh my God, it's punk rock and wrestling combined. This is what I want to do. It's like those simple little moments where it's like, oh my God, he stumbled across the Road Warriors on TV, and that sent his life off into this totally different direction. And you never know where those little sparks are going to come from. And you get a lot of that in this movie from his wrestling career, from like the last few years where it's like, okay, he can't do a lot of the physical stuff anymore. So he has to do a lot more deathmatch type stuff now to make up for what his body can and cannot do. And then the whole behind the scenes with being into the producing of shows and producing talent and producing matches and the whole, the director aspect. He's really into the whole, you know, getting the shots and wanting the show to come across in a way. And geez, if you want some intensity, we don't need to talk about intensity in the ring. We can talk about intensity of Vampiro at the table, watching the monitor and seeing what's going on out in the ring and having the vision in his head for what he wants to see, but he's seeing something different on the screen and it's not lining up. And there is a lot going on there and a lot of I would say conflict.
There's a lot of ego, a lot of conflict, a lot of tension. All the tea that you want is in this. Again, if you just know about the stories of AAA, Triple Mania, and if you know about you know, some other rumors about beefs and conflicts that he's had with people, it's all addressed here. And I do need to make one correction, is that this film is going to be available on video demand September 8th and will be on Blu-ray September 22nd. So you have two options of checking that out. But I think overall, somebody who's looking for a good documentary, somebody who you know, personally is a wrestling fan or remember Vampiro, you definitely want to check this out because this is really well done. And it gets down to the truth. I feel like there's nothing left questioning after this. It is as personal as you're going to get about a person's life through all the ups and downs and struggles that he's been through in his career.
Absolutely. Can't agree more. You are going to find every facet and side of him, whether it's the father, the producer, the wrestler, the guy who has really been on a long road in life. And you get it all. I don't at any point felt like, you know, they didn't really touch on this or they were steering away from this. It's like, no, it's all laid out there. The good and the bad, the highs and the lows. So take it in and you can form your own opinion on it.
Yeah. But as always, everybody, you know, check out this film. Definitely come back in the comments and let us know what you think. The Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. Check it out. And as always, stay subscribed and we'll catch you all very soon.